There is a sound I will never forget. It was the seconds hand of a Rolex Yachtmaster 2 ticking away on my desk. Each tick a reminder that it was losing value at a rate of about £1,000 for every week it was sitting there. The market had turned, the buyers vanished, and for the first time since I'd started trading watches, I realised something terrifying. I wasn't running a business anymore. I was gambling on hype. But of course, hype is not a sustainable business model. Since then, I've changed everything. No more chasing trends, no more six-figure risks, and I've gone back to where I first started. Sub $5,000 watches. And trust me, it's the best decision I've ever made. The money just is not in Rolex anymore. Let me explain. When I first started, of course, I did not have deep pockets. Certainly not deep enough to afford an inventory that featured nice shiny Rolexes anyway. I left university with a remaining maintenance grant of £1,500, which granted I should have been using for food, but put into watches instead. So every deal mattered. If I bought wrong, then I was out. That forced me to learn the basics, where value comes from, how to read markets, and how to make profit through effort, adding value, not hype. But as I was growing, I did pretty much what everybody else did. My aspiration was to be trading Rolexes, Patek Philippe's, Audemars Piguets, and that coincided with the market boom of 2021. The biggest rallying of secondary market prices that we've ever seen in the watch industry. And of course, I chased the heat and jumped straight on that bandwagon as well. Now, 2021 was utter madness. Everybody thought they were a watch dealer. There was a lot of liquidity and cash flowing in the market, but it was a period where really you couldn't make any wrong deal. I remember GMT Master 2s, Batman's, Pepsi's, they were increasing by almost £1,000 every week at one point. So if you bought one of those today, at slightly really above where you needed to be, you knew if you kept it for a couple of weeks that you would be well into profit. And that was just crazy. People were going out, dealers making deals on watches above and beyond what they paid for them last week because they knew, all I have to do is hold it a short while and there is a guaranteed profit there. But of course, I am an accountant and I did realise that, like all bubbles, this bubble really has to burst at some point. But the problem is, when you're riding that roller coaster, it's very difficult to know when to get off, even if you come at it from an angle of somebody who understands economics. And really, I did not expect a correction to happen. I did not expect the market to go in reverse. Rather, I expected a slowing down and eventually a pause in appreciation of watch values. That didn't happen. The reversal did, and March 2022 hit. The crash. The easiest money in history vanished almost overnight, and so did a lot of those so-called dealers, those crypto boys that had made profits. That Yachtmaster 2 I mentioned in the intro, down £5,000 before I'd even had the chance to list it. Now, I actually bought that watch at £27,000. I thought that it was good because I anticipated that would be the next big one to explode in value. We were getting that almost every couple of weeks. There was a new Rolex watch that people were turning their attention to and saying, oh, actually, there may be value there. And everybody was looking at that next one that would be the big profit opportunity. And of course, that meant that at the peak of the market, most of the buyers actually weren't just raw collectors. They were speculators. They were other people looking to make money. So I, like many dealers, the ones that were left anyway, had to decide where the hell we move on from here. It wasn't sustainable to keep trading Rolexes or hype watches that we were keeping in stock, buying at a certain price, and the following week they were worth less. We were now in a retrenchment of the market, and we had to decide, well, how do we reinvent ourselves to keep trading watches and stay in this business, but shielding ourselves from what is going on? And that Answer is through differentiation. We needed to focus on a corner or a niche of the market which wasn't as exposed to these economic push and pull factors that were, for the first time in history, affecting prices on the secondary watch market. You had a few options. Yes, you could stay with Rolexes and take that risk, as some dealers did. You could go into vintage, or you could focus on entry-level Swiss watches, and that's exactly what we decided to do. Turn our attention really back to where we first started, trading those cheaper entry-level Swiss watches, sub £5,000. The rest is history. It became a very successful strategy for us for the following reasons. Number one is stability. Now, these watches, if you look at the statistics and the graphs, watches like Omega Seamasters, Tudor Black Bays, Breitling Navitimers, Cartier Tanks, Cartier Santos watches, these pieces historically, during that turbulence of the market, didn't really move with the flow of those watches over the sort of £8,000 price point. We found that because these watches were priced at a much more accessible level, they really were watches that were being bought by real collectors, real enthusiasts, and not the speculators. The second reason is liquidity. Now, you can sell a £2,000 watch to 1,000 different suitors. There are customers queuing up for watches of that quality, of an Omega Seamaster, for example, as opposed to a £20,000 Rolex Daytona. Well, in that case, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. And number three is speed. Turnover is faster, which means that reinvesting that money is also faster. That keeps your capital moving at a faster pace. And here's the kicker: margins. Now, if we take, for example, the cheapest watches that we buy into stock, an Omega Seamaster 300M in 36mm. Now, we could expect to pay £900 for them. We frequently do on a weekly basis, service it for just £100, and we would expect to sell that for £1,500. Now, that represents a 50% return. Contrast that to a Rolex GMT Master Batman, for example, at around £11,000, sell it for £12,500, and that's a 13% meager profit margin if you are lucky. Now, of course, on top of that, you've got fees of selling the watch as well, so margins are slightly less, but that illustrates there, would you rather go for the GMT Master and buy that into inventory, which is the mistake a lot of dealers make starting out? It stays and lingers in inventory for longer. There's less people in the market to actually buy that watch, and you're not really doing much whilst you wait for it to hopefully sell, and also hope that it doesn't fall in value as it's more greatly exposed to external economic pressures. The Omega Seamaster, however, it's sold within a couple of weeks. You're buying your next one, you're selling that again, you're buying your next one before the GMT has gone. So I hope that illustrates exactly why this business model has worked for us ever since then, and meant that really I can sleep better at night. At the end of the day, this business isn't built on hype, it's built on people, patience, and understanding value. Anyone can try and ride the wave of what's hot, but a real business is built on foundation, not luck. And that's what Dialed In is all about. It's the same system I use every day, a program that I have built for serious collectors and those who have a passion for watches. They want to evolve that passion into a viable, profitable business opportunity. It's not a course, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, it's a private one-to-one advisory working directly with me. Now, I'm not going to be opening up applications to that just yet, but places will be very limited to just 3 spots initially. However, if you sign up to my email list, which I've pinned in the comments and put in the description below, you'll be the first to hear about that. But also, if you're not interested in that, then it's a great thing to subscribe to, because I will from now on be sharing more insider knowledge of the industry, my own personal deals and market analysis, going into much greater detail on that email list than I can on YouTube. So that's a great benefit if you join that. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for joining me in this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.